All right, guys, welcome to the free Reignite Zoom for the month of June, which we are rapidly coming up on Father's Day, which should be very interesting. Tomorrow will be my Father's Day edition of the Rational Mail, as I always do my shows on Sundays. But today we're going to get into three topics. We are recording this now, right? We're good? Okay, because we couldn't record on the last one. And so today I'm going to get into some topics that are coming up in the next book that I'm writing. I'm writing a sixth book right now, and I have to. I'm going to be 100 here. I'm going to be everything above board, like everything that I do from here till probably August when the book publishes. You guys are going to help me write the book. So and I love it when it's a collaborative effort, because that's really what the first book was about. When I started writing the first book, everybody said you need to, I had a blog at the time, and people said, people will take you more seriously if you have a book. And they did for a while. So anyways, but it was a collaborative effort, and so I have to sort of give you the outline of the new book, which is going to be called Reignite. It's an effort in sort of trying to get guys to reestablish themselves, come back from being zeroed out, getting, hitting rock bottom, whatever you want to call it. But it's to help you sort of like unfuck your life and to bring you back to some sort of normalcy, I guess, so that you can actually function and you can keep moving on. And a lot of people, I think, when you get into self-help and things like that, I think a lot of it is formulaic. I think a lot of it is really kind of just lists and step-by-step kind of processes, and it's like a cookie cutter kind of thing. And when I'm looking at this kind of stuff, I really have to like dig down deeper, right? I want to know the process. I want to know how people get to where they are. And so, like I've said before, I've put this in my books a couple times, but I'm not the kind of guy that is satisfied to just like put the keys in the ignition and the car goes, right? I want to be able to open the hood and tear apart the engine and put it back together again, so I know how the car actually works, right? And I kind of apply that to other aspects of my life too. And I think a lot of other people would benefit from that. So that's what we're going to get down to today. We're going to get into three topics. All of these are related, and that's sort of the beauty of the next book, is that up until this point, we have, I think anyway, I'm guilty, mea culpa, right? I'm guilty of the same thing. But up until this point, I think a lot of people have taken a lot of these subjects that I'm getting into, both on my Substack and in the book. I think we take them into isolation, and I think it's time we kind of make things a little bit more holistic and see what sort of dovetails into another concept. So on the last video, on the last Zoom call that we did, we discussed, we discussed what was it, frame, and we discussed trying to think of the other ones. Oh, mental point of origin. People always have questions about that, and I'm I'm the one that came up with mental point of origin, and I love it when I see other sort of gurus telling me what I meant. So I have to be very careful about being very specific about what mental point of origin is, because it's not this Tony Robbins kind of hey, put yourself first. There's actually a psychological component to mental point of origin, and how that sort of locks in with frame. And so today we got three topics that all also lock in, and they also lock in with the previous three. So when you read Reignite, the coming book, you're going to see how we go from, like, say, confidence, and how confidence fits into frame. And I have to sort of give this to you as the preamble of what's coming as far as these free Zoom conferences, because they're going to also be locked into each other. So when you're looking at, like, say, what is alpha? What is mindset, right? What is alpha mindset? What are sociosexual hierarchies? A lot of people are very, very confused about sociosexual hierarchies. I just wrote a really kind of lengthy, you know me, a really lengthy article on sociosexual hierarchies on my Substack, and I got a lot of feedback on that too. I usually it has to be you have to like you have to be a member or you have to be a sub to actually comment. And it was interesting to see how many comments I got on this because a lot of people have been very, very confused as to what is a sociosexual hierarchy, where did it come from. I'll explain that a little bit today too, just because it sort of locks in. Like I said, everything is connected. It's like the Marvel universe, right? Everything's connected. So that's what we're going to get into today. So we're going to get into sedation, which I know is a very popular topic. It's probably the best read, I think, what was it, 12,500 views on that one on my Substack. And that's actually why I put that on there. If you look at the top there in the webinar chat, I have put the Substack article that I wrote on sedation. So I only have like, we have time constraints here, but if you want to get into it a little bit more in depth, go check out that Substack, and there's a lot more to it than what I'm going to probably be able to get into today. It's much more detailed. I'm always way more comprehensive in my writing than I can be on my podcast or Access Vegas or whatever. So do check that out, because if you have more questions about sedation, I'm here to help. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a drug. Like people say, "Are you a drug counselor? Help me get off heroin, Rollo." Like, no, that's not me. I can refer you to somebody, but that's not me. I will get into sort of the psychological nuts and bolts of sedation. Then we're going to get into alpha mindset. And then finally, we're going to get into confidence. And confidence is one of those things that, like, it's one of these magic words, right? It's like Ryan Stone would call it a container word. You just shove in whatever you you think you mean about being confident. And so I'm going to sort of dig into confidence a little bit more too. My second most recent article on Substack also deals with confidence. So if you're there and you haven't subscribed to my Substack, please do, because a lot of the stuff that I talk about here and a lot of the stuff that's going to be in the book are also going to be, essays and articles on my Substack. So it's very easy. Just, if you have more questions or if you didn't get enough, right, just go to my Substack. It works way, way better. So anyways, I'm going to start with sedations. And what is a sedation? And it's sort of a broad term. A lot of people think of sedation as, like, if you think about it in a medical term, like, what does sedation do? It calms you down. Like if you're in a auto accident or something like that, they're going to sedate you, right? They're going to find some way to sort of like stabilize your body and just like make it so that you're not necessarily immobile, but like you're just chill, right? And you don't really want to do anything, or you're gonna have like local anesthetic. It's gonna so you just don't feel anything for a little while. That's the medical terminology for sedation. But what I'm talking about as far as sedation is, it's really anything that prevents you from getting up and going and doing something. So as I said, again, this is in the article on sedation. No guy in the manosphere, no, I don't care how many red pill articles you read, I don't care how many I don't care who you listen to, I don't care how many times you listen to them, or you can, sort of parrot back what they say. None of that matters unless you actually go out and do something. And a lot of guys struggle with sedations that prevent them from going out and taking action. And so I've kind of distilled it down to sort of three different forms of sedation. And the first one is physical. So this is easy. Okay. It's like a drug addiction. So if you're on heroin or you're doing Molly all the time, whatever, I don't know, whatever it is, whatever your drug of choice is, that's most definitely a sedation. Okay. It's something that holds you back from really reaching any of your potential. And it does so by just sort of becoming a block for you to get out of bed and go out and do something, go to the gym, go and better your life. So that would be considered a sedation. That's pretty easy to wrap your head around, I think. What's really more difficult is when you get into some more nuanced drugs like marijuana or THC, or however you choose to, if you want to vape it, if you want to have edibles, if you want to smoke a bong, whatever it is. a lot of people will say, well, I'm better off when I'm smoking weed, or I'm a better thinker, I'm more focused, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, no, you're really not. Um, but it becomes a habit, and not necessarily an addiction per se, although an addiction is most definitely a form of sedation. But it could be alcohol, and that's probably one of the most pervasive ones that I encounter quite a bit. People just simply, well, they're bored, right? And they want some sort of high, some sort of kick, some sort of dopamine hit that helps them enjoy what you probably wouldn't enjoy were you not drinking. And I'm going to give you guys a quick story and a little bit later here about how I stopped drinking. And I think people will appreciate that. I'll try to be a little bit real with you. But those are the physical aspects. So it could be booze. It could also be food. Okay. So if you're an overeater, or if you have sort of this addiction to just shoving shit in your mouth or whatever, that can be a sedation as well. So it's just really what your body is accustomed to and what you've habituated it for. So those are the physical aspects, the physical side of sedation. I could probably do an entire 2 hours just on sedation. It's a really kind of broad topic, but again, as I said, have a look at the Substack if you want to get into it a little bit deeper. The second is behavioral. Okay, so there's behaviors and habits, rituals, regimen that we kind of follow just sort of blindly. You might not be addicted to booze. You might have a problem with booze. You might not have a problem with drugs or something like that. Um, but your behavior, your habits end up becoming sedations. What do I mean by that? Pornography, very easy. That's a behavioral sedation. So you go to that as your escape. And this is where really all sedations are a form of escapism, because it sort of lets you freeze you up to get away or unwind, right? I hear all the guys that say, well, Rollo, I like playing video games. That's another, behavioral thing, right? I love playing Call of Duty, GTA 6, Space Marine 2. Right? And I'm not down on video games. I'm not even down on pornography. I'm not down on it. If you guys want to drink, be my guest. I mean, in moderation, I understand. I am in no way a teetotaler. I'm in no way, I'm not going to wag any fingers at anybody. Like, so just don't think that I'm in any way sitting in a seat of judgment, because when you hear my story, you'll understand why. Um, but so when you are one of the things I have guys tell me is like, I would like to, pornography, or your OnlyFans girl or whatever. Maybe you have sort of an addiction, a habit of tipping OnlyFans girls. Maybe you have your favorite girls, or whatever. Pornography, of course, is a no-brainer. And so what's funny is when we get to November and everybody's like, no fap, no, no fap November. Um, Suddenly everybody wants to focus on pornography, and how we should ban pornography. And I'm just like, good luck. If it wasn't pornography, it would be something else. But they're really escapes. Immersive video games, for example. The escape world, the escape life becomes more seductive and becomes more real than your shitty real life. And so I understand why you get into those habits, particularly when it comes to porn or it comes to OnlyFans. It's a much better lifestyle. It's a virtual lifestyle. It's a counterfeit lifestyle. But really, what you're doing as far as your habits and your behaviors, those are something that you kind of do mindlessly. And so you have to get down to the root of why you're you're engaging in those behaviors consistently. So, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, that's exactly part of the program, right?
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
pulling that stuff out and seeing what's going on under the hood so that it doesn't keep running mindlessly in you, and you don't keep, succumbing to things that you don't want to do, or you keep succumbing to things that don't build you up to be a better man. So that's what the talk today is about. It's like to start seeing that stuff and having awareness of what's going on inside of you so it doesn't run you anymore.
Right. When you look at habits, habits are triggered by deeper needs or deeper deficits, I guess. I don't even want to call it needs. I'm going to say it's deficits. And a lot of people, when they realize that they're sort of locked in to this regimen, to this cage, right? When we, I mean, I have to throw out a story here about Robert Greene. Robert Greene is the author of 48 Laws of Power, 33 Strategies of War, Laws of Human Nature. I think he's got like 7 or 8 books now. What is it? The Art of Seduction. I know he's got that too. But one of the things he has said, and I don't think this is any one of his books, but I've heard him in interviews describe what he calls live time versus dead time. And I think this kind of locks into the behavioral side of sedation. Okay. So, for instance, if this is me too. I'll give you my old rituals. My old rituals were I used to get up at about 5 a.m. I would go to the gym. Well, I shouldn't say that. I would drive to the gym. Then I would go get my workout in. Then I would go shower and get my clothes on because I had my gym bag and everything. I would go and get my clothes on, do everything, get on the turnpike, go up to my place of employment, and then probably spend 30 to 45 minutes on the turnpike to do that. And then go and work for, let's be honest, 9 hours a day. And then you've got another commute going back, which is probably about an hour. And then you finally get back home and it's you've got to be daddy, right? You've got to be loving husband. You got to have, or you got to take care of your bills. You got to have, there's all kinds of like sort of protocol and things that you have to do to just sort of keep yourself afloat, right? Most guys at that point will say, I'm just going to sit down and just go and play Call of Duty, or I'm going to go and jerk off to porn or whatever it is. But the lifetime, though, all of what I've described up to that point is dead time. It's time that you don't have to actually grow or to progress. And so what happens is you in a day, maybe you've got 1 to 2 hours of leisure time where you can engage in your hobbies. You can go and play a video game. You can whack off to porn. You can go and drink. Whatever it is that a lot of people want to say. Well, I have a really stressful life, or I have a really stressful job. I need to go home and unwind. Okay, well, that's where your habits kick in. And so your act of unwinding is I'm going to have a beer. I'm going to go play Call of Duty or whatever. And then I'm going to whack off to porn, and then I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm going to start this whole cycle all over. And really understanding that you are sort of in that cage and not making any progress, and maybe hopefully making progress at the job that you're at. But thing is all of that is dead time. Live time is when you have the time to go to the gym. You have the time to do what you want to. You have leisure time. You have open time. You have live time. And that live time needs to be spent on activities and things that help you progress. And so you think about this when guys come home from their hard day at work and their very stressful jobs. I'm not saying they're not. They tend to, instead of thinking, "Hey, I'm motivated. I got to go, and I'm gonna work on my side hustle. I'm gonna go work on my podcast. I'm gonna go work on my video production skills. I'm gonna go and find some way to better myself. I'm gonna go to maybe I'm going to college. Maybe I'm going to college at night to get a degree or something. Anything that is benefiting you and pushing you on to the next level and helping you grow. That's live time. And so I think like just putting it into that perspective. When I heard this, I was like, oh man, I was like, you know, because most people use their weekends. When you think about your weekends, you got 2 days to do what you want to. What are you going to do? You're going to go drink beer and you're going to go hang out with your friends, and you're basically going to do things that are going to help you relax because you have such a stressful job, and you're going to go Monday morning and repeat that cycle once more. So rather than using that live time to benefit yourself and to grow and put that in, I should say, invest that time in things that help you grow and help you become more higher value, right? You're trading that for the habits that you're comfortable with, that help you escape the shitty life and the shitty routine that are of your dead time. And for the most part, guys live lives that are fundamentally based on dead time. So that's something I think a lot of guys need to think about. It's like I said, it was sort of an
And
epiphany for me.
that's what we're working on with Reignite, right? We're
Yeah,
working on guys
exactly.
having awareness of what they're doing and how they've just like hit a rut, and they're not living a life that they built for themselves. They're just living an unintentional life
Right.
just because that's what's in front of them. And just like you're saying, hey, I woke up every morning, I worked out, I went, did the drive, came home, was exhausted. Well, that's you're not living a life of intention at that point. And so that's where's the awareness around that? And then how do we break out of it, right? Or at least make your life more fulfilling if you're in a place where you can't at the moment move
Yeah. How
out.
do you become more self-aware as far as and you're right. I think that's one of the great things about the group and about the tribe that is Reignite is we're tough love. We'll tell you like it is, and sometimes it steps on toes, literally and figuratively. um, but sometimes it's necessary, but people are like, I don't want to get into like the schmaltzy kind of pinnacle of a man kind of thing, but iron sharpens iron, right? Well, that's kind of what we do in Reignite, which is it's not so much like iron sharpens iron. It's like we're just going to tell you like it is. Like your style sucks, right? Or you have Harold, you have duck walk, and people when they join up, it's they know what they're getting into, and so it's always going to be about bettering yourself. No one's here to like really sort of make fun of you or whatever, but we're going to tell it like it is, and you're going to benefit from it. So, what did you give me here? Oh, yeah, I saw that already. Yeah, I saw that. Gosh, what a hose job that is. Yeah, yep. Bonnie Blue. We should talk about that tomorrow. Most definitely. So those are the behavioral forms of sedation, and the last form of sedation really um, is mental awareness, and really this is kind of like it's key to a lot of sort of psychological blocks that guys have. So, for instance, hey, everything's connected. So let's take our guy who has a very stressful job from the previous example, and that guy's going to tell me that the reason why he does what he does, the reason why he smokes weed, the reason why he overeats, the reason why he jerks off the porn, whatever it is because he has to unwind. He has to find ways to sort of relax. And that's a form of mindset, is sort of creating these rationales and these scenarios, schemas, mental schemas, I guess would be a better word for it, so that they can excuse the habits. They might even be aware of it. Oh, I really should stop smoking. Oh, I really should get to the gym. Oh, I really ought to do these things with my lifetime that benefit me as a whole, and my family sort of as by association, my friends, my family. If I'm a better person, then they are along for the ride. Okay. As I said in the previous videos, when you're talking about mental point of origin, it has to be something that is psychologically changed in you. Most guys, most men, most boys are brought up to be good servants, indentured servants, right? They're meant to do things and sacrifice themselves and essentially break their backs there about being a serviceable person, right? And as a result of that, they have to be taught to be agreeable, and they have to adopt mindsets at a very early age. You have to be a servant. Everyone say, "Oh, you got to be a servant leader." Fuck is that, right? You've got to be, you've got to lead in the family, right? And you've got guys who are in positions of responsibility who really don't have the authority, and they never really thought about that. They don't have any authority to sort of affect what they're responsible for. And so just by thinking that, and just by changing your mindset, you're going to end up changing your habits. So if you're looking at like say mental sedation, the top at the top of that list is going to be your mindset. And I think I mentioned this in the last video. You have to think of it in sort of like, if you've ever seen the movie Inception, We have to go all the way down to the bottom where the very first choice was made, and then like all of the other sort of cascading choices and events that happen it's like the butterfly effect as a result of that one decision that you made, and it cascades throughout all the other points of that lead down to the point of inception, right? It's very interesting concept, and I think it's one that's been overlooked because we focus a little bit too much on the matrix, right? It's like red pill, blue pill. It's alpha this, beta that. I think Inception is almost a better movie to to make those allegories. But so, anyways, getting down to that point of inception, that's really your mindset. I'm going to talk about mindset and coming up next here, but I wanted to throw that out there, and then it's also your beliefs. Beliefs could be something that you've adopted from, like, we tend to think of beliefs as like religious beliefs, but there are other forms of belief. So, for instance, your attitude, a very blue pill beta attitude towards women, is you've got to do everything for them. You got to put them on a pedestal. You have to be their friend. You have to have rapport. You have to walk her home from school and carry her books, right? Those, like, be serviceable, be what is it? The savior schema, right? If you do services, you're rewarded for services rendered, right? If you behave in a certain way, you're supposed to be reciprocated behavior in a certain way until you find out that nobody's playing by those rules. And so that's when guys sort of quote unquote take the red pill. What they're really doing is they're coming to the realization that they're playing by one set of rules and everybody else is playing by another set of rules. So coming to those conclusions, coming to those, like, becoming aware of that. That's why I always refer to, like, red pill and blue pill. I always refer to red pill awareness and blue pill conditioning. And when we're in Reignite, that's probably one of the first things that we're focusing on, is sort of making those separations, understanding that you're playing by a rule book that other people aren't playing by. And that goes down to beliefs. And those beliefs, like I said, they could be religious, but they could also be something that your parents said. They could be something you read from Marcus Aurelius, right? It could be something that really changed your mind about something when you were in college and you were reading, I don't know, Atlas Shrugged, right? It could be something, 48 Laws of Power, right? 48 Laws of Power was very eye-opening to me when the first time that I read it. And I think it was back in like 2001, 2002, and I picked it up and I was just like mind blown, right? I honestly, I wanted to write something like that. As soon as I was inspired to write as a result of reading that book, it changed my mindset. It changed my beliefs about certain things. And the thing is I think a lot of people think that if you have one particular belief, that you're a coward or you're wrong or you're a dumbass, right? You're low IQ, you're cringe. If you change your mind about something, if you say, you know what, I used to believe this, but now I don't. Now I really have locked in to a different mindset as a result of that. So what I'm saying here is that your mindset and your mentality and beliefs and just the things, your core values, those things, it's okay to change your mind about things. It's okay to change your beliefs about things. And most people are really reluctant to do so, even in the face of like empirical evidence that says you're fundamentally wrong. People will still resist. And if you watch any of the podcasts, like whatever podcast or Fresh and Fit, or you watch Access Vegas, or when we present something to women who have a belief or mentality about a certain thing, and then we give them no nonsense empirical data and statistics and whatever. I mean, it goes right over the head. And the reason why it does is because the sedation of their beliefs prevents them from growing and from understanding and from allowing this new data to change their minds about themselves. And when I get into this book and when we work in Reignite right now, the core principle, the core thing that I'm after is getting guys to the point where they give themselves permission to change their minds about themselves. Say, you know what? I'm not that guy anymore. What I have been doing, you will only get what you've got if you keep doing what you've done, right? And so now you've got guys who are saying, you know what, I'm going to change things up. I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to dress differently. I'm going to act differently. I'm going to behave differently. And of course, everybody's going to say, well, oh, you're a poser. You're just trying to be something you're not. No, you get to decide who you are. And really, that's sort of one of those core things that we talk about in Reignite. Do we have a question? Do we have any questions? Anybody put their hand up yet? I'm curious. By the way, at any point, please, put your hand up. If you have a question about something that I've gotten into, I'm more than happy to go into detail and re-explain. So, anyways, those are the three sets for sedation. Sedation is one of the most difficult things I think that guys sort of have to confront. But you have to be able to get rid of your sedations. You have to understand and recognize that you have them in the first place, and sometimes that's tough. Because your mentality, by the way, all of those, the physical, the behavioral, the mental, they all work in tandem or triplicate, whatever, the trifecta, right? So your mental state might be your justification for your physical sedations. Your physical sedations might also be affecting your behavioral. Like for instance, if you are taking depressants all the time, how's that going to affect your mentality? I started doing, and I'm going to give you some personal stories here because I know people like stories. So I'm going to give you a story real quick. Back in, what was it, January of 2023, Mike Sartain, my buddy, my brother, said, hey, why don't you get on TRT? Like, give it a shot. I'm like, because I was, 50, 56, 55 back then. And I thought, you know what the hell? Let's go do it. So I started doing TRT, and lo and behold, everything that he had said about TRT, like the colors in your world change, and it makes effort feel good. That was one of the things he had said, and I was finally experiencing that, and I'm like, God damn, this is great. I want to be at the gym. I'm changing up, like, money, muscles, and game. I focused mainly on muscles after that because if I wanted to be in the gym. In fact, my workouts got a little bit longer. I was lifting heavier, and it just felt good to be in the gym, and it felt good to get things done around the house. It felt good to be writing. It felt good to be doing like productive shit, and it really, honest to God, that the physical changes, the physical transformations as a result, and this is a positive one, okay, as a result of taking TRT, really kind of changed my outlook. And like, so my physical state can change my mental state. So one of the things when we talk about, like, especially in Reignite, one of the very first things we deal with is physique and the physical, because that's usually where we have to start, because most guys are like 75% of the, or 70%, 75% of the US population is overweight. So odds are we're probably working with a guy who needs to lose a little, he probably needs to lose what, like 20 pounds, something like that.
At least.
And so, but people go, oh, that's just lift, bro. No, that's not what we say. We do that. We focus on the physical first because it's going to break habits. It's going to break sedations. You're going to feel better after you get a good workout. You're going to feel better after you change your physical conditions. So if you're taking prescription opioids, or if you're smoking a lot of weed and you stop doing that, and you stop depressing your system, suddenly the mentality that you have changes. Suddenly you're treating people different. Suddenly, when you go from being a fat ass, and then 6 months later, 8 months later, however long it takes you to sort of like trim down and to put some muscle on, you'll notice that people treat you differently. And it becomes this positive feedback loop. So it's much better to have those positive habits that are triggering dopamine than it is to have those negative habits, because those negative habits end up becoming sedations that prevent you from doing more, being something more than you are right now. And so that's really the ultimate goal, especially with the program we have with Reignite. The ultimate goal is to get you from where you are now to something that's greater and something that's up here. You're down here right now. We want to get you to up here. And we're going to do that through nuts and bolts, explanations really of like, what is confidence? What is alpha mindset? So I'm going to get into alpha mindset next. Did you have something you wanted to do? We said in between.
No, I just was going to plug Reignite Alpha between.
Okay, well,
But no,
I think I've been doing okay. All right. Yeah,
No,
I think I've been doing okay. Yeah, I don't want this to be like we're shilling for for Reignite Alpha.
Let's go.
Yeah, well, please. But
But just hitting on the going to the gym and just getting in shape. Just like you said, you feel better, right? You'll look better, but you'll also feel better, and you'll show up in a different way.
right,
And as we're talking about the building blocks of improving your life, the discipline of getting to the gym every day or on a regular basis and having a plan for what you want and achieving that goal, that's the starting point, right? That's the starting point for overcoming the other things in your life that you've been really struggling with and haven't been able to handle. So that's one of the reasons we talk about going to the gym first and foremost, is because it's a way to fundamentally build yourself up to a point where you can start tackling those things in your life that have like kind of been the dragons that you haven't been able to slay yet.
mhm. Yeah, it's all about coming up.
Yep.
Yeah. I tell you what's funny.
You know, one other thing is like,
Uh-huh.
this program isn't people for just people that are zeroed out. It's like there's so many guys we have and we've talked to that they're like, hey, I used to be an alpha. I used to be a guy who got shit
Right.
done. I used to be in charge of my relationships, and something happened. Things flipped, and now I'm just like, I'm not the dude I used to be, and
Right.
that's really what we're working with too. Are guys that are just like, hey, I used to ride my motorcycle. My wife fell into my frame all the time, and something just turned around. I'm never on my bike. I'm never going out flying, whatever.
Right.
And my wife is like just bitching and crabbing. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around her. And so it's like, okay, let's get in there and figure out how to get you back to where you were before.
Yeah, I think that's one of the
Yeah.
I think that's one of the core concepts for us is like we're not just for single guys. Okay. So we ideal personally with with older guys. I mean, like
Yeah.
if you look at I'm gonna drop names, but Robert Kiyosaki, for example. I work with Robert Kiyosaki. He's still a very close personal friend of mine, but it became so because I was helping him through his divorce with Kim Kiyosaki. And he was in exactly that position at that point where it's like he'll even say this, he's done this in interviews, like I was a big fat beta. And now he's dropped pounds. I mean, he looks good, man. It was funny if you look at pictures of Robert Kiyosaki from like back in the 90s when he was like he was with Trump on like Larry King Live. He was heavy, man. It was a hefty boy, man. But then, like, once he realized that he needed to initiate some changes during his divorce, right? I told him, I said, man, Robert, you're Robert Kiyosaki. Don't worry, you're going to be just fine, right? And so, he had a personal trainer, he had a nutritionist, he has people that really help him with his health. And he's Robert Kiyosaki, so he can afford stuff like that. But he's a good example of a guy who was in a relationship and really kind of it got away from him. And I don't want to see that. A lot of guys will say, hey man, I'm in love with my wife, I just want to turn the sex back on, right? She's frigid now. She used to be so fun, she used to be really fun in bed, and now she's just giving me starfish sex, and it's like, it's a chore, right? It's like I gotta wash the dishes, I gotta do the laundry. Are you done yet? I gotta fuck my husband, right? Um, so we have a lot of guys who are still are married. And as a matter of fact, we had some in when we were in Miami. Um, but they don't want to divorce their wives. They don't want to get out of the relationship. They just want to change something about it. They say change something about themselves. So don't think of Reignite as just like, hey, we're going to go out to clubs and we're going to go, cruise chicks or something
Well,
like that.
actually, it's for older guys. We don't want to
Yeah.
go to clubs, right? We want to meet the women we want to go out with.
We want to go to places where you can
Organically.
hear each other over the music.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's part of the reason we built this too. Was like, I don't want to go to a club to meet women. I don't want to
Mhm.
be out till 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30 in the morning, walking around in front of the club to see who I can pick up. Right.
Right.
I want to go somewhere where it's a social area that in a thing that I like. That's one of the things we do is we have like a questionnaire for you guys to fill out.
Right.
And it's like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And then we build, a social weekend for you at those places that you like to go.
Mhm.
For the things you like to do, and that's where you're going to find and meet the women that you like really resonate with.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, I think a lot of guys, especially like older guys, I'm talking 50, for what, 45 to
Yeah.
65, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
The prime demographic for divorce for men is right around 43 to 45. And a lot of these guys are coming out of relationships and they don't know what to do with themselves. It's like they've been unfrozen from their cryo tubes, from I mean, whatever, suspended
Do
animation.
they still have their mojo?
Yes. Do they still have their mojo? Well, they've been unfrozen, and now they were frozen in time in 1998, and now it's 2025, and it's a brave new world, right? It's stranger in a strange land is what it is. And so the dating landscape is like, what do I got to do? Instagram? It's so funny, man. The guys that we work with, um, they don't understand that, like, Instagram, how vital Instagram is to their dating prospects, and how to cultivate pictures, how to use, like, say, Face App, how to do like realistic looking filters and things like that, or like what the psychological reasons are for certain settings, and being in a photo and doing high value things, and doing
Right.
having access to scarce resources, and all that stuff. um, and it's a lot to take in. And I think it was Rich Cooper once said that the red pill in the rational male is like drinking from a fire hose. and and I understand that there's a lot to consider, but it's good to have guides, and it's good to have a book about it, and it's good to have some explanations, and that's really what we're trying to do, is
Well,
sort of help you guys reorient yourself.
yeah,
in
it's a
a
journey.
brave new world.
Yeah. So one of the things that us as guys, we're very logical and we want to A, B, C, D, it's done.
It's deductive
Right.
reason.
And this is you're working on something that you've been working against for 30, 40, 50 years, right? In a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Not always, but and so it's a journey. And so that's what we're trying to help you understand, is that if you're not successful today, it's not the end of the world. You're working step by step by step to get to the place that you want to go. And so the more patient you are, and the more, and this is one of the things I work with the guys, is like, what are you saying to yourself every day?
Mm.
Right? What's your mantra that you're telling yourself? Is it that I'm awesome, am I going to do great, and I know where I'm going? Or is it, oh, life sucks and it's horrible? So guess what? Which one's going to help you be better? Right? And
Mm.
so the idea is that, like, we incrementally help you get better and better and better. And you just have to understand that there'll be some setbacks, but you are moving in the right direction. And then look at your little wins and
Mm.
say, hey, I am moving in the right direction. And that is a win.
Mm.
I was talking to a guy yesterday and just for him to even go out, because one of the things I had him do was just go out and say hi to people and be social, right? Because we're trying to build your social muscle for a lot of guys. And he went out, and then he talked to a couple of people, but then he had like, oh, I'm done. This is stupid, whatever, blah, blah. And I just had to help him realize that even leaving the house and going in and talking to those 2 or 3 people was a win. So we have to give ourselves a pat on the backs when we're starting moving in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah. It's important. I think this is in general, but it's important to catch people doing good
Mm-hmm.
as
Right,
much as
right.
it is to catch them doing bad shit, right?
Yeah, and especially ourselves, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I need to be my biggest cheerleader. I can't be my biggest
I mean,
person
and
that beats me down.
that kind of boils down to my next point here, which is
Yeah.
mindset. And I wrote as you might guess, I wrote another essay on Substack about this, which is how to get alpha mindset. People love direction, man. Like, that's one thing about this book that and the essays that I've been writing on Substack. Um, People like it, like when I'm like, how to be confident. Oh, really? I think, like, my stats go through the roof. If I do something that's a little bit more prosaic in the title, people don't respond to that. But if you tell them how to deal with, what is it? The title was Dealing with Sedation. That was one of my best read essays thus far, I think, this year. And really, all that is going to be a chapter in the book. But people really responded to that, and there's a definite need. And so when I see the reaction, I see the response of people wanting to read about that, then that sort of promotes me to like, okay, well, what about confidence? What about mindset? What about alpha this? What about whatever? A lot of people want to know what alpha is. How do I be alpha? Rolo, I did this thing with this girl, and I talked to her about these topics, and she seemed really interested. And she was giving me indicators of interest, IOIs, and she was doing this and everything. And then I showed her pictures of me fishing, and that's an ick. Was that a beta move or was that an alpha move? And I'm just like, oh, you have to remember, and before I get into alpha mindset, you have to remember that when I talk about alpha and I talk about beta, or I talk about deltas, I talk about gammas, or I talk about omegas, those are sociosexual hierarchies. Those are proximate terms, those are abstractions. So if I say some guy is an alpha, this guy, Justin Waller is an alpha male, right? And I say Destiny is a beta male, whatever it is. Like you can, it's very easy for guys to sort of process what a beta is. But when we talk about alpha, everybody wants to be an alpha. Everybody says that, or they want to be a quote unquote sigma, right? Which I'm going to spoil for you in this show today. But everybody wants to be special. And so an alpha, and women want to jump in on this too. They want to opine about like what is alpha and what is not. And usually it's whatever benefits them is alpha at that particular time in their timeline, right? So if they're 23, the hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun on spring break, that guy is alpha. Until they get to be 33 and they're looking for a guy for the long term, and they're looking for a dude to sort of have babies with and to, grow old with, and who can financially support them and everything else. That guy suddenly becomes the alpha. And the other guy, Dan Bilzerian, he's no longer the alpha. No, it's daddy. Daddy is an alpha rather than the jerk, the cad, the dark triad personality guy. That guy used to be alpha. Now he's not alpha anymore. Why? Because she doesn't need that anymore. She needs security. She needs something. So you can't really take women's opinion of what is alpha and what is not, because they're going to be opportunistic about it. It's whatever guy solves my problems, that's alpha. He goes to church. He's got a solid job. He's coming up in the company. He doesn't have to be super good looking, but he still has to, at least take care of himself. That's alpha. Guys will lock in with that too. Whatever they are is usually alpha. And when people say, I'm not really alpha, I'm really more beta or something like that, those are the guys with a different mentality. They're guys with a different mindset. I've had guys say they don't understand masculinity. They either masculinity is something that is toxic and evil and wrong, that they have intrinsic, like they're self-loathing, their gender loathing, their gender identity loathing, right? They're like, oh God, I'm sorry I was born a man. I'm trying to identify more with women. Oh my God. That's mindset. It's a mindset that's been smashed into their head since they were 5 years old. But mindset really coincides with mental point of origin. And as I said before, when you're getting down to the inception level, we have to go and we have to like sort of bore down and distill down to where you came to those beliefs. Before we can even talk about alpha, we have to talk about what is fucking mindset. And mindset is really, it's, God damn it, I don't know if this is your experience or not, but mindset to me, whenever I hear somebody say alpha mindset, crypto mindset, what is it? Millionaire billionaire mindset, 10 times mindset. Sorry, Gary Lee or Bradley. But it's usually a sloganeering. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, perplexity. What is mindset? Chat GPT. What is mindset? And it's kind of, again, it's an abstraction to really distill down to what is it that you believe about yourself, and from that point, from that inception point, what do you believe about other people? How does that affect other people? How does that cause you to interact with people who may not share your worldview, may not share your mindset? And as I was saying before, if you get on TRT, or maybe you stop some of your sedations and you get to the gym, you stop smoking weed, you get off the booze, whatever, you have a different mentality. Why? Well, because it's changed your mindset. You've just changed your physical composition, and now that's helping you sort of think about things a little bit more clearly. Imagine this: you stop smoking weed, and you can think a little bit better. So what's that going to do? How is that going to change your life? Are you going to start reading more? What are you going to read? Marcus Aurelius, and Ayn Rand. What are you going to? How is that going to change your mentality? Right? So mindset is a thing. I 100% agree that it is a thing. I just think that it's something that's been bastardized and commercialized so much that when people want to say billionaire mindset, I just got to change my mind about money. Right? I mean, even Robert Kiyosaki will have something to say about that. And I think mindset as a term really gets raked over the coals. So we have to boil down and say, what is mindset? Mindset is an attitude. Mindset is a belief set. Mindset is like, I believe X. I believe that women are angels and we should treat them with respect and we should put them on pedestals and we should do whatever they say because they're the keepers of the pussy and you don't want to, if mama ain't happy, God ain't happy. um, Happy wife, happy life. That's a mindset right there. The other mindset is I come first. The other mindset is this is what I have learned over the course of my lifetime, and this is my mindset. And remember, mindset can change. And you're allowed to actually change your mind about things. And I will tell you right now that the way that I think and the way that I see the world is nothing like it was when I was 57, when I was 27, right, or when I was 37. And so that mindset is going to change. And I'll give you an example of what I had to do, how I had to change my mind about myself. And this is how I learned mindset was when I used to work in wine and spirits. I used to work for Van Gogh Vodkas, Van Gogh Imports, I should say, because we had more than just Van Gogh. We had other brands in our portfolio. And I was used to doing brand management. I was used to doing, I did product development. I developed all the flavors of vodka that they have. I was responsible for tap rye whiskey. I was responsible for Panama Jack rum, but also like Ron Abuelo, which was a Panamanian rum. And then I could name some other names too. But the point is I used to have one mindset when I was working 9 to 5, when I was in my dead time, right? And then something radical happened and something radical changed. And my dream was to have like ownership of some of these brands because that was a key to success. If I could get a 1 or 2% ownership of any of these brands, then I'm getting residuals, which I still am kind of right now. But if I can get into that, then I can sort of grow and I can actually, get higher up in the company kind of thing. And then the company divested. And just one day, February, actually, I remember it was in February of 2013, and they said, we're closing the doors. We're closing the company. And the reason they did that is because of the healthcare. They couldn't afford, like Obamacare was creating a real tough time for companies of our size. And so rather than try to struggle with insurance and struggle with all that, because we only had 12 employees, we just said, screw it, we're closing the doors. And they divested the company, and I was on my own, and no one was coming to save me. And that's where I learned that lesson. And I think I've heard Justin Waller say that on a few times, like, no one is coming to save you. And so at that point, I had to sort of figure shit out for myself. And now my mindset is changing because the people who I trusted and the people who I thought I was going to be working with for a career, for a lifetime career, suddenly all that's over. It's doomsday. In fact, I even had what was called a doomsday script on my computer, which is like save all of these things, put all of this stuff on this hard drive, and take this hard drive. Because the reason why I knew that they were going to want that data is because I'm the only one that knew anything about it. So I've got all this. I've got all my hard collateral on a external drive, and that's what made me go from the 9 to 5 world into the gig economy. And I was forced to do so. And that's a principle I want to address here as far as mindset. Most people will not change unless there's a gun to their head. They will not change. They will not initiate anything unless they are at a point of trauma, at a point of crisis. And that's a shame because when you're not in that point of crisis and when things are just running on all 8 cylinders, that's when you need to sort of reassess. That's when you have the time and the leisure to say, okay, what have I been doing? Like, how can I sort of reassess my life? Well, like I'm good now. So how can I be better? People don't do that. They get back into their sedations. They get back into their habits. And so they're running smoothly. And then the company sold. And now you're like, what the fuck am I going to do? And remember, there's many ways to be zeroed out. You could be divorced, you could lose your job, it could be a death in the family, it could be anything, right? And so what happens is you get the gun to the head. The company's divested. What am I going to do? Well, I had a pretty good severance package, and so I decided I was going to move back to Reno, which I did. And then lo and behold, I start working for the same company that had bought out Van Gogh because I had all the data. And so now I am still technically an employee, but I'm not, I don't have any benefits. I don't have an insurance. I don't have a 401k. It was just whatever price I could name my price. And so I had to change my mind about my daily routine. I had to change my mind about working in a working class world, working in a 9 to 5 paychecks, whatever, getting, a regular paycheck. And now I'm going from making a lot of money to making no money because I'm in the gig economy. It's feast or famine in a gig economy. So if you're salaried or whatever, that salary helps you sort of keep running on all 8 cylinders. It keeps things moving smoothly, right? Your mentality during that time is, or your mindset at that time is much different than when you're at crisis point. And that's what helps guys change their mind. Most guys, when they come to the red pill, and remember, we don't advertise. The red pill doesn't say, "Hey, we don't put billboards up in, on the Vegas Strip," right? Read the rational. I probably should do this. read the rational mail. Red pill here. Right? No one does that. They come to the red pill because they're looking for it. They're looking for an answer. They're trying to, how do I get my girlfriend back? My wife left me. How do I get her back? I lost frame. I'm in a sexless marriage. How do I get frame back? How do I get my wife to spread her legs again? How do I get back to that point where I was at, right? And then of course that's really what our program is about. But how does that jive with mindset? And what's changed your mind as a result of that? So now I'm in the gig economy and my mindset has changed. I'm still working for the same guys, these same motherfuckers who wanted to fire me, but now they're dependent on me because I have all the data and I have all the things that they need to continue doing what I was doing just 6 months ago. So now I'm in the gig economy and I'm basically a freelancer. And so I've got other clients, and then my former employers wanted me to just basically be a freelancer and go out and do what I was doing, which was promos. They wanted me to do brand development. They wanted me to do labels. They wanted me to do everything that I used to do when I was salaried, but now I get to name my price because I don't have insurance or anything like that, right? And so now I go into the gig economy and I'm doing all right. Even Vegas was one of my clients. I've had Northern California. I had Orange County. It was freaking great, man. And so I'm actually making more money, but I have no benefits. So technically, cash wise, I'm doing pretty well. But my thoughts and my mentality and my mindset about money was changing at that point too. And my mindset about people who I engage with and who I want to build a team with, who do I want in my band, right? like who do I get? How can I make a brand about me and people be on board with that? Right now, by this time, I'm probably 3 books in, so it's like 2017. I've got the first 3 books are already out, and my books are doing good, especially the first one. And it took time to develop and evolve, but the rational male became the Bible of the red pill. I'm going to pat myself, I'll gloss myself a little bit here. The rational male is the foundational work for the red pill and the foundational work for the manosphere. And I don't think I'll get too much argument from that. But at that time, I didn't realize that's what it was becoming. So I still was like, oh, it's great to have this, just gravy money from my books. And I'm doing really well with that, almost so well that I could get out of the gig economy and get into what I call the hustle economy, which is I'm the brand of me. I'm Rollo Tomasi, the rational male. That's my brand. So when I'm looking at like say like a brand of alcohol or it's basically product development. That's the way that I looked at it. My mindset changed about myself. Oh, I can't do that. I can't be an author. I'm not an author. What am I? What, it's like imposter syndrome, right? I'm not really an author, but here I am writing every day. Here I have a blog that is like the second most travel or trafficked blog, and Royce was actually the first, but mine was the second most trafficked blog in the manosphere. What was the manosphere back then, or red pill stuff. And we're having really great conversations. I'm aggregating all this stuff, and then I put it into a book form. Now I'm an author, and I had to get over myself. I had to change my mind about myself because I'm like, who would want to hear anything from me? Like, what am I an authority? Do I actually have something valuable? Who wants to buy my book? Who wants to hear what Rollo has to say? I had to get past that, and I had what I. This is probably a stupid way to think about it, but I had to become more conceited to be more self-important. To say yes, God damn it, people want to see this. I'm the second most trafficked blog in the manosphere. Yes, I've already got a collection of all the best essays that were a culmination of like almost 15 years of being a moderator on the So Suave forums, and now I'm probably 2 or 3 years into the blog. You're goddamn right. People want to read what I have to say. I'm going to make a book, and that's why I crammed everything I possibly could into the first book. Right? People still complain about it. Oh, it's a really small text. Yeah, because I thought that was going to be the only book I ever read or ever wrote. But now I'm an author, and I'm proud to be an author, and all I want to do is write. And so, but I had to get over myself. I had to give myself permission to be conceited, right? To at least allow myself to believe that I am what I am, and people want to read about that, and they do. So and now I have a reputation, I have a brand. Hell, I just re-upped the trademark for you have to keep your trademark going after 10 years. I actually had to pay a re-register it a few days ago. But yeah, so I had to change my mind about myself, and that's mindset. And now my mindset is much much different. Like, okay, let's fast forward to 2025. Now my mindset is much different about my daily routine. My mindset about money is completely different. I remember, I remember the first time I had jumped up in tax brackets, and I jumped significantly in tax brackets, and I ended up giving up the gig economy stuff in 2020 because all of my accounts were shutting down because nobody was going to nightclubs. Nobody. I mean, the liquor stores were great. You know, the on premise was great. The off premise was not so great. Um, and so that's when I decided that I was just going to go full time and do this. And really I had started in 2017. By 2020, I'd made the full decision, and I showed my face for the first time in 2017. Um, I was confident enough to do that. I usually just did audio interviews. I never showed my face because I didn't want people to dox me, and I didn't want them to go after my family. But now I know that, and that changed my mind about stuff. My mentality right now is much different than it was back then. So coming to something like mindset has to be useful. It has to have some sort of utility to it. It has to teach you some valuable lessons so that your mindset can be part of your core values. It can be part of your belief system. It can be part of what you've been taught when you were 5 years old by your female teacher, probably, or it could be taught by pop culture. It could be taught by listening to Cardi B. It can be taught by listening to whoever. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a book, maybe it's music, maybe whatever it is. We're all influenced, and our mindsets are influenced by outside forces. And so the trick to all that is to sort of push all that, eliminate yourself from that noise, and then get down to the basics. So what is it that your core beliefs, what is it that your mentality and your mindset is? So when I look at like guys who are sort of in this black pill doomer mentality, I'm like, how do they get, like, I'm curious. Like, it's easy to like shit all over these guys, right? But I'm curious, like, how did you get to that point? Why do you hold these beliefs? Why is this your mindset? Because it doesn't seem like it has any utility to it. Like when people ask me, like, Rollo, what's the red pill? And I'm like, okay, the red pill is the praxeology of intersexual dynamics. That's the bumper sticker. That's the elevator pitch. But it's way more than that. And so then I have to go into much broader definitions and whatever. But like they want to cast the red pill as being something that is like a belief. They want the red pill very desperately to be a belief set, or they want it to be a philosophy. And I've heard this all the red pill movement. It's none of those things, but they desperately want it to be. Why? Because that they can process and interpret through their mindset. So their mindset is, well, women ain't nothing but tricks and hoes, right? And so therefore they want to just sort of drop out of society. What's the point? The juice ain't worth the squeeze. That's mindset. So when we look at, like, say, the black pill, if we look at the white pill, if we look at MRAs, if we look at MGTOW, those are all best practices. They're taking the data and they're taking the resources from the red pill, which is basically just information for education, right? They take that and they go, okay, well, we know all this stuff from the red pill. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk away. MGTOWs, we're just going to walk away and just let these girls, they can come after us because eventually they're going to need us, right? Or MRAs. We're going to go to Capitol Hill and we're going to raise hell and make sure that men get, I don't know, your free urology tests or something. We need more men's shelters, battered men shelters, right? And it never works out. The MRAs are just like lost in space these days. But they think their mentality thinks that that's the best way to go. That's they're processing things and they're saying, okay, well, this is what we're going to raise hell. You got the trad cons, you got the trad pill, whatever you want to call it, gold pill, whatever. You got trad cons, and of course it's like it's Jesus, right? It's how can we relate this to the Bible, or maybe the Quran, maybe the Torah, I don't know. But whatever that particular religion is, then they process that through the mindset, that the filter that is the mindset of what other religious beliefs are. So you're always getting like religious guys who interpret the red pill and they want to pick and pull the red pill apart. And that's part of that mindset. So getting down to what do you believe? And this is like sort of an exercise. I put this in one of the other videos that's a part of Reignite. It's important if you want to journal this, if you want to just take, I just take little quick notes. I have millions of notebooks. But if you want to ask yourself, like, what is it that I really believe? What is it that I really think is the best practices? And how did I get to that point? What is my, it's called epistemology, right? It's like, how did you get to the point of believing what you believe? I believe that Donald Trump is the greatest president ever. How did you come to that? Or the black pill doomers, like, oh, we should just give up and just like, stay in our, just do whatever we have to do to survive and just let life pass us by, right? There's a difference between what's called hypo agency and hyper agency. Hyper agency is you happen to the world. Hypo agency is the world happens to you. And that's part of a mindset once again. So when you're looking at black pill doomers and this sort of depressive, despondent mindset, how did you get to that? And it's one thing if I'm asking it because I'm trying to parse things out. But it's better when guys ask that themselves. It's better when you say, how did I come to this? And is this useful? Is this something that's going to benefit me? Right.
And that's what we do in Reignite. I mean,
yeah.
So Reignite,
we challenge you. Yes, we challenge you to figure out where you came from, right?
Exactly. So it's the practical app. Basically, it's the practical app of all your books, Rollo, is what we're doing. So where the rubber hits the road. So like on the mindset thing, right? It's like, well, it starts by what are you telling yourself every day?
Right.
What do you say to yourself every day? And is that serving you or not serving you? And then how intentional were you in forming who you are right now? So just like Rollo said, what are the outside influences causing you to be the way you are? And then which one of those did you actually choose to be? Or are you just going with the flow because you don't know any better? So, we're helping broaden your perspectives to see the other possibilities. And then we have a couple questions here, Rollo. If you want to jump onto those things, that'd be great.
Do it. What do we got, Kyle? I don't have this. I don't have that one. Which one is that? Oh, there we go. Well, now I can't read it.
I can't read that.
Can you read it for us?
I can read it.
Oh, you can read it. Okay. I don't have that one. Am I in a different chat? I think I'm in a different chat. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, add me to the host so I can see that. I can't because I can't see those chats.
Okay, so this one, the first one is
Okay.
Rolo. I remember Rolo mentioned try everything, be a jack of all trades and a master of some.
Hmm.
Would be helpful to get more insight on how to get into enjoying life, mainly because as a virgin, your mind is just too obsessed with getting girls at this point
Hmm.
that you find it hard to feel interested in doing or trying out or other things. The brain says, okay, I'll try doing to the gym, start doing sports, but how would this get me pussy?
Hmm.
Due to scarcity of female interaction and you realizing this harsh reality later in your life, hold on. The brain is too wrapped around getting a girl, and that makes it much harder. That makes it much harder.
I feel like I should run
I'm
up to
like,
the
it's like
screen there.
going right between the two. Okay. I can't get that last part. Anyway, he continues to ask, I've also gone out with guys who are good with girls in their own social circle, and these guys normally tell me that girls are going out with, that they would eat me alive in terms of how sharp they are.
Hmm.
With their words, as far as I understand, I need to work on my humor, but that's just my own thinking. There's one more part that I got to read that's very
Hmm.
important. Hold on. Can you read that, Kyle? Because it just keeps slipping back and forth on my computer. Makes it much harder.
Yeah, I still can't see those. I still don't. I can't get that one.
Mm, okay. I can't read it either. So that's the question, basically. So, and so basically, he said he works at home. He lives in a third world country. The only
Hmm.
place you can meet women, according to him, is only at universities or the job. And since he works at home, he doesn't have the ability to go out and
Hmm.
meet women. Plus, his friends go out and meet women, and his friends say the women would eat you alive because you can't relate to them, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough. It sounds like a guy's. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like a guy's kind of younger,
Yeah.
on the younger side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and he's very concerned about his virginity. um, well, I mean, the first thing that we tell guys, just in general, is you have to fish where the fish are. So, if you're in a position or you're in a location where they're very slim pickings, let's just say for women, you have to be able to be mobile. You have to be able to to get to where, like, take a vacation. I don't know if that's even possible for you, right? It's one thing for somebody to say, well, hey, I can't. I'm locked in prison. How do I get girls, Rolo? And that's a tough topic, because if you're trapped and your conditions are what they are, you've got to be able to change your conditions. Are you able to do that? Are you able to be mobile? Can you get away from that? Like, if you're going to university and there's girls at the university, and that's really the only sort of like culturally acceptable sort of sexualized zone, right? It shouldn't be at a university. But if that's the only place that you can go, then you're gonna have to learn how to game at university, at your university. What are you gonna do when you're not in university?
Well, he's not in university right now.
Well, was he not saying that that's where
That's where you meet women. He works at home.
but he works at home.
Yeah.
But he's not
So he's not in the office. He's not at university.
okay. Well, you're gonna have to make a choice to get out and go and do something. Again, I work at home. Well, okay, to me that's a sedation right there, because that's kind of a mental sedation. Well, I work at home, so I can't go out. Well, you can go out. Are you working 24/7? Is that what you're doing? I mean, maybe you need to change something about your personal life. What's important to you? Is it important for you to, like, lose your virginity? Is it important for you to get a girlfriend? What is, like, where does that, like, again, maybe make a priority list of something. Where does that fit in the list of priorities for your life right now? Where do girls, like, probably at the very top? And by the way, no shame. When I was younger, that it was definitely at the thing. Getting laid was definitely at the top. Okay. But, like, where does the rest of your priorities start? Because actually, I don't think girls are at the top of your priority list. You know why I know that? Because you're telling me, well, I can't go out and meet girls. Girls will eat me alive. Um, I work from home. Work from home, that's at the top. Girls is probably down here number 6. And so at what point are you going to say, well, I'm going to have to make some changes in my life. I'm going to have to go out, whether it's in my thinking, whether it's in my location, whether it's in sort of my mindset, whatever it is. If you want to get girls, if you want to get a girlfriend, you're going to have to go and take action to go and do that. You're going to fall flat on your face. Yes, they are probably going to eat you alive. You have to become more resilient. You have to become bulletproof. But moreover, it's like how, like, because I don't know if you're getting this from him, but it seems to me like I've got to find some excuses as to why I'm not going out and I'm doing things. I've got again, and that's mentality, and that is sedation. I don't want to go out there because I'm going to get eaten alive. It's a fear of rejection, like live in person, IRL, in real life, rejection. That's tough. That's tough. But you're gonna, as a man, get used to it. Because if it's not a girl, it's going to be a job. If it's not a girl, it's going to be your family. It's going to be your mom, your dad. It's going to be whatever. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's a rejection from going to school. Deal with it. You're going to, as a man, you're going to deal with rejection way more than women ever will. And that's in so many aspects of your life. You're going to be found wanting, doing whatever it is that you're doing, right? So sometimes you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed, but at some point you're going to get good at it. Falling on your face, as long as you get back up and you learn the lessons from that rejection, come back and try it again, man. But again, I'm not here to give you a pep talk, and you're probably still despondent. It's like, this is not going to help you whatsoever. But you got to understand that if you're going to say, well, I work from home, or girls are going to eat me alive, that to me, that's a form of sedation. And you need to, and what kind of sedation? Let's look. It's definitely a mental sedation. It's definitely a mindset sedation. Are you going to the gym? Did he say, did he mention he was going to the gym?
He didn't mention if he was or not.
Okay,
But
well,
he didn't seem that it would,
well,
it was a distraction.
I would
right,
ask
so to
this.
speak.
I don't know if there's a specific about that, but I would ask this is like, where does the gym fit in that priority order in your life? Can you meet girls at the gym? What third world country are you in? That's what I want to know. That you can work from home.
Well, the big thing is just, it's, again, as guys, it's all or none, right? We want it done right now. Okay. I want a logical step-by-step solution, but I don't want to have to put myself out there emotionally where I get wrecked. So I'm just going to make I'm going to make excuses for why I can't do this, right? Because I know that I'm emotionally going to have to go out there and interact with girls who are going to make me feel like shit sometimes, right? And so the idea of what we do is like, okay, well, go just be social first. How often are you going out and just being social and talking to girls without the idea that I want to take her home and fuck her, right? It's like, hey, let me go out and just talk to some girls so I get used to talking to girls, and I don't need an outcome. I don't need to take them home. Start building your social circle that has some girls in it, and just be there and get used and comfortable being around women. So many guys want to have women in their lives, but I only want a girlfriend. I want a girl that I can fuck. Well, you're not going to get better waiting around to find a girl you can have sex with. Go out and have female friends and hang out and pal around with them so that you get used to being around girls. And guess what? When you're doing that, you can actually talk to them about what's going on, right? Talk to them about what a guy did to her, or what she likes in guys, and start using that. And then but I know that's going to bring up a whole different subject about we don't listen to women. But
Yeah.
we do what attracts them, not what they say. But my point is, go out and practice being social. Okay, just like the guy I talked to yesterday. He would not, if I didn't push him, he wouldn't have gone out. So it had been another day of him sitting at home sedating.
Yeah. Is this the guy's name? Is his name Ali Conan?
Yeah.
Okay. He has this other follow up here that I'll read.
Okay.
Because he just popped this in. He says, I actually did this back in 2023, went to Turkey for an MBA, but apparently it feels like there's so less that I can relate to with these girls, what these girls talk about. You don't have to relate with what they talk about. Like, we're in Vegas, man. Do you think I relate with anything that bitches say on Access Vegas? No, no, no. Are you there? What do you think you're going to have what we can discuss philosophy, advanced mathematics? I mean, what's your MBA in, man? Yeah, I mean that's another thing is like you got to get outside of your head, man. Like you're not like I can't get behind what these girls say. No one can. We can. Nobody can. Right? It's I mean, if you find some chick that has a shared interest, oh holy shit, it's like finding pirates gold, man. But yeah, that's not something that should be a concern, right? Well, they talk about all they talk about is I don't know, Drake. Drake. Um, yeah, I mean, you can't relate with, well, then that's why you have your bros, man. That's why you have other guys that you can hang out with. I would almost ask you this, and I'll read the rest of your thing here in a second. But I would ask you, like, what's your relationship with guys? How do you interact with other men? Because a lot of guys, it sounds to so I'm just gonna throw out my really quick hit, like stupid, armchair psychologist answer here. It sounds like you're isolating. It sounds like and by the way, guys get very comfortable in that isolation. That becomes a sedation for them. Oh, but I'm comfortable here. I've got my computer. I can order Uber Eats, and I don't have to, basically, I don't even have to get out of this chair if I don't want to, right? And why would I want to do that? Girls I can't relate with. Why would I want to go and subject myself to that? Because you want to get laid? Well, here, let me explain this to you. Come to Vegas. In Nevada, the state of Nevada, we have legalized prostitution. I will 100% guarantee I can solve your virginity problem here in Nevada. No problem. I should make a program here. It's going to be called Brothel Game. All you got to do is bring what, $500, $600 and a finder's fee. So I'm going to need at least a couple $100. Okay. I will take you to the Moonlight Bunny Ranch in Dayton, Nevada, and I will take you out there and I will 100% guarantee what will solve your virginity problem. No problem. What are you going to feel like afterwards? Are you gonna be cool? Oh, finally, I got a weight lifted off my chest, off my shoulders here. It's not about the virginity. It's not about the sex. He's like, you want a girlfriend. You want that connection is really what you want because you wouldn't be complaining about what they're talking about if you didn't want that connection with that girl.
Yeah, read the rest of the question.
Yeah. Okay. So let's read the rest of it here. Heck, I stayed in an apartment and I shared with, even stayed in an apartment and shared with 4 other girls in Istanbul. Doesn't sound like you have a problem. They used to go out at night and then come back in the morning. And but because I couldn't relate to their lifestyle, it reached a point where they started feeling creeped out when I would come out of my room and go to the kitchen, simply because I didn't understand how to socialize with them. Well, that eureka! At least you have discovered the fact that you have a problem socializing with women. Why do women get a creep vibe? You know why? Why do women get creeps? Why do they get the creep vibe? They get the creep vibe because you're incongruent. That's why. Because what you look like and how you behave is not congruent with what actually what you want to project.
Well, obviously he's judging them.
Yeah.
Right.
Clearly.
They don't want to feel judged.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're living with four. How the fuck is that? Where can I get 4 chicks to live with me, man? I wouldn't be in the kitchen. I think a lot of guys in this situation. Now he said it's Turkey or it's Istanbul, right? So I'm gonna presume you're Turkish, right? Turkey's not a third world country, is it? It's the second world country.
So, yeah.
I think Dr. Red Pill would have something to say about that. He's one of my friends. But I think it comes down to your socialization. So it's your social skills right now. And my other question would be, how do you relate with other guys? Because if you're going to tell me, well, I don't really relate with other guys because I don't like to go play basketball or I don't like to go they slap me on the back and I don't know what to do. How do you relate? Because what that says to me is that you've chosen isolation, and isolation is dangerous. That's one of the 48 laws of power. Don't build castles around yourself because it limits you from learning by doing, I should say. But it limits you from information. It's nice to say, oh, I live on an island and no one can touch me. But after a while, you become sort of this shut in, right? you're it's usually the elderly shut in, but now you're the young shut in. And it sounds like you're more like a hikikomori than anything else, right? It's one of the Lost Boys. Really, what you need to clearly you need to work on your social skills if that's the case. If you're giving these girls creep vibes,
Well, I think it's he's judging them, and they
yeah,
don't want to be judged, so they don't want to hang out with someone that's judging them, right?
right,
So it sounds like that you're being a downer in the house, and they don't want to hang out with a downer.
yeah.
Right? I don't even think it's creep vibes. I think it's just you're judging them. They don't want to be judged, and you're not
I
a good
mean,
influence in the house.
do you
Somebody to hang
just
out with.
do you just hang out in your room and work on the computer and don't go out and don't do anything? Like but essentially what you're doing is you're cutting yourself off by from social learning, right?
Yeah, and
We
that's what
learn
I've done that
human
too.
beings learn by doing. We see other people do shit and we go, okay, I see that working. I'm going to try that myself. And lo and behold, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But more often than not, you figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I had to, by the way, Rollo Tomassi in his rock star 20s had to learn everything analog. There was no cell phones. There was no nothing. I had to go to clubs. I had to become a musician. I had to figure out what worked for me. Once I did, dude, you want to know, like, this is public knowledge.
You weren't being
My knock
judgmental,
count is
right?
41. And let me tell you, about 40 of those came between the ages of 17 and 27, somewhere in that span, right? Because once I figured out what worked for me, then I could repeat the process. And that's just pussy. That's just getting laid. That wasn't about like learning to be social. That wasn't learning to deal with other people's psychology, understanding things. So I think a lot of guys, like men in particular, young men in particular, when they are raised and acculturated behind a screen, they're not learning by doing. They'll read about it or they'll see the girls, and yes, you're right. They become judgmental about that because they can't relate to those girls because they're not out there hanging out with the girls to understand it in the first place. They don't get the jokes. They don't get the inside jokes. They don't understand when a guy is just giving them shit, like friendly shit, like elbowing him, like, hey, what's up, man? Fuck you. Like they don't understand that an insult is actually a compliment. They don't understand the difference between bullying, hazing, and guys just being fucking guys. Right. Like I remember when I first met Mike Sartain, and guys, I knew I wanted to do a podcast with him. And like we instantly start like we're at sticky paws. And we start throwing the football at each other and shit like that. And we start like fucking around with each other. And we still do today, right? Like you'll see me on the show and I'm just like grab him by the fucking neck, right? Because he talks too much. But that's guys being guys. I'm not going, hey, I'll bust your face after this fucking show. Although that would be funny if I said that. But
Yeah. We just take.
I'm not going to do that. I'm just fucking with them.
Yeah.
Right.
As guys, especially with girls, we take shit too seriously.
Yeah.
Way too seriously.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good point because Mike's always says treat the girls as if they're your friends. Treat the girls as if don't treat them any differently than you would for your guy friends, because if you do, then you carry over into their frame. And honestly, that's actually a pretty good point. Just the way if you're going to sort of I don't say obsess, but if you're going to sort of overthink all of this stuff, you're essentially in their frame. So, like, I think your social skills are something that need to be worked on, and then what is it about these girls that your mindset puts you in a judgmental position, right? Because a lot of guys will they'll watch Fresh and Fit or they'll watch them on or they'll watch whatever podcast and they'll get their daily dose of cringe and they'll go, I can't believe girls are like this. And then they go and they apply that to the girls the 4 roommates that they have.
Well, that's performative too, right? Fresh and Fish is the format is performative.
Yes.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. But like at what
you can't
point
apply that to your real life.
how do you what's funny to me is how do you be judgmental about them, but you're not out socializing to begin with to understand what's really going on with them. So
cool.
Anyways, what is we have been spending a lot of time on Ali. Is there anybody else that we have?
There's others.
Okay.
Patrick Forno. I think of sedation as a sort of release of pent up energy, unwinding.
Mhm.
Is that accurate? And if it is it better to use the energy for a lifetime or is it better to release it? I have a hard time containing this energy in my body. How do you uncover beliefs? Okay. And then,
Yeah, we'll get to that.
yeah,
I have a
exactly.
hard time containing this energy in my body. Okay, that's good. You need to, I hate using the term energy because everybody like, "Ooh, woo." But there is actually energy. There is motivation, there is drive, there is ambition. And what I would say is if that's the case, you need to funnel that into constructive pursuits, whatever that is. Could be the gym. Like I would say, like I'm going to tell you to go to the gym. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be something else. You could be working on a project. Like men, one of the things about men is men need a project. We need a problem to solve. We need a war to fight. We need a hill to climb. We need new frontiers. We need to explore new places. You want to know? You want to know one of the reasons I believe like immersive like video games are so like seductive is because they're frontiers. They're digital virtual frontiers, but it gives a guy, hey, this is an open sandbox game. I can go anywhere I want to. What's over here? What's over here? Like that's why guys really love that shit, man. It's a sense of exploration. I know that because I used to do backcountry snowmobiling when I was living up in Reno and Tahoe, and that's what would get me in trouble on my sleds. Is like, but I want to see what's over here. What's that? What's past the meadow? What's up? What? I gotta break that cornice. I know it's gonna cause an avalanche, but I'm still gonna try to get up there, right? Because it's that I don't know, it's this obsessive kind of need to sort of explore. Right? Um, but like, so what do you do with that? Okay, I'm going to give you my standard answer here, which is a little bit deeper than probably what your question is about. But the human condition is discontent, is not contentment. Anytime somebody says, "Oh, what the article like women with no children and are 33 years old are the most happiest demographic," and then 2 weeks later there'll be another one that says women who are childless are the most miserable demographic there is, right? And it's confusing because you're going to get like differing, it's cognitive dissonance is basically what it is, but it's all founded on this idea of you can be content, you can be happy. In fact, you want to know why so many women are on SSRIs, antidepressants right now? Is because we've sold them on this lie that happiness is this maintainable, sustainable state. You can be happy for the rest of your motherfucking life, right? You'll never have to be depressed. You'll never have to feel any other, you know, emotions except for happiness, joy, and contentment and fulfillment, right? That's why do women go work in fields that are like human resources, things that are like communications majors, psychology majors. Why do they do that? Because they want this sense of fulfillment. I want a job that's fulfilling. Why? Because they believe fundamentally, their mindset fundamentally believes that you can be happy forever to the day you die. Oh, my family will be all around me on my deathbed. And then suddenly, they'll all say, well, we love you. It's okay. Pass over into the light, grandma. No, you're probably going to die in an assisted living place and with people you don't even know, right? But the thing about happiness is that happiness is an emotion that you feel when you're doing something. It's the same thing right here. Well, I've got all this energy. I don't know what to do with it. Should I take it and use my lifetime for constructive purposes? Yes, absolutely you should. Because I learned this from an art teacher actually one time. It's like you will always be discontent. At some point you're going to say, "Well, hey, I got my degree. I finally got a girlfriend. I finally got a wife. I finally have a kid. I finally have this. This will make me happy. I've got this. I've got a Camaro. That's finally making me happy." Um, that's it's funny. Red Pill Thor said, "How does this car make you feel?" And I was like, pretty fucking good, man. That's what I'm like. Here's the 10 grand. Because I felt good. I felt like happy to drive this automobile, right? It was great. I'm not like it wasn't a flex at whatsoever. You see the Camaro, you know. Um, but it felt good to be in that car. It feels good to be on my sled. It feels good to be on my watercraft. It feels good to do motor. It feels good to be on the edge of death, by the way. Um, but discontent is defines the human condition. Now, here's the key, and this is what my art teacher taught me: is that there's two ways to deal with discontent. You can deal with it constructively and creatively and build and do things, construction, or you can do destruction. You can tear yourself apart. Like all this energy. Okay, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to go drink. Okay. What are you going to do with all this energy? Oh, I'm so bored. I need to find something to do. Okay. How are you going to, because boredom is discontent. What can I do to be entertained? What can I do to feel happiness? What can I do to feel contentment? And by the way, that's a feature of human nature, not a bug. Thank God we're discontent, because if we were content, there'd be no advancement. There wouldn't people wouldn't be motivated to do anything. So it's good that we're discontent. It's just my personal belief that we should do things constructively, deal with discontent constructively. Go paint a picture, do something artistic, go write a book, go to the gym. What else can we do? Let's see. Well, what do you do when you're discontent? Kyle, yes. What do you do? What's your hobbies? What do you like to do? Work out? Play a game? Well, that's okay. I'm not saying, yeah, I'm not saying, as long as it's not like, if it's interfering with your life, if it's stopping you from progressing, it's a sedation. Okay. But doing things, being constructive about stuff, that's where the rubber meets the road, really. And again, that's something that I personally like to teach and Reignite. It's one of my sort of pet projects. Is whenever I see like stats on, like, I see this from like the guys at Daily Wire all the time. They're like, oh, don't you know that like married men are 70% more happy than single men? Like, it's bullshit, because you're basing everything on happiness, and happiness is not being, it is doing. You will never be happy. You will do happy. You'll do the things that make you feel happiness or feel contentment, but you can't be content. You can't be happy. You can't just sit there and just, I mean, maybe you can go take ayahuasca and be happy for like however long it lasts, right? Whatever the trip is, right? But then you find, what do you do when you come down? You're just still you. So understand that being constructive in that discontent, taking that energy that's bottled up in your body or whatever, take that and put that to constructive efforts that build you. And then what's great about that is, I mean, this is exciting to me, is like what's great about that is if you have that energy and you use it constructively and you build something and you build that and it relates to you and your own betterment, then you move up to the next level. And you're like, okay, I'm at this next level right here, but I still want this next level. And so then you use that same energy to go from there. And now you're up to level 3, right? It's almost like leveling up your character, like in an RPG or something like that.
So one of the things we do in Reignite is we really get with the guys to write their goals out.
Yes.
And
yes.
know where they want to go.
Outline.
So like
what the next level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you want? Where would be a great place for you to put your energy that you have, that you are directing yourself to do? So that, just like Rolo said, becoming better in some way, do you have a goal for yourself to be better in some way and a place to put that energy?
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you take that energy and use it constructively. I think that's probably the end. That's a period on the end of that.
Yeah,
exactly. Use it constructively. And it's especially constructively if it's something that benefits you and helps you level up.
Could be learn how to play guitar.
Yeah. Do that.
Exactly.
Join my band. I need a bass player now. Learn bass. Move to Vegas.
That's so funny.
That's what you could do. Okay. What else we got here? What do we got? We got 15 minutes. Okay. Any of these?
Yeah. So is it advisable? Is it advisable to change your environment after adopting a new belief mindset? Because suddenly my buddies start complaining of how I'm no longer chilling with them. I don't care anymore, and I'm becoming selfish. How can I tackle this?
Okay. There's a difference between selfish and becoming self-important. And there's nothing wrong with being self-important. Okay. Most men are taught from a very early age, like when Johnny's 5 years old, that he should think of others before he thinks of himself. And again, I credit where it's due. I'll quote Rich Cooper here: is we teach boys to do the right thing. and we teach girls to do what's right for you, girl. And so when we tell boys to do the right thing, it's usually something that is serviceable. It's usually turning that guy into a utility. And so if your friends, if you, for sake of example here, if your friends think of you in one way, they're going to have a problem with you when you start thinking in a different way. You become predictable. That's why people like loved it. They don't want you to change. It's the the crab in the bucket or parable analogy. It's like the fisherman never has to put a lid on the crab bucket for bait, right? Because other crabs in the bucket will pull the other crab that's about to get out. They'll pull him back in, and that's really what happens. Because what for men in particular, they're going to question the authenticity of your own change. So if you've got a group of friends, like, gosh, I'm not the only, I can't be the only person to tell you this, but you're going to lose friends. People are going to not want to hang out with you because you have changed your mind about yourself. And you're going to get this. Guarantee you're going to get this. You're not, this isn't you, man. You're trying to be something you're not. And when you get that, always say, yeah, you're right. Because who I was and what I was doing and what I was getting is not what I want. And so I'm going to change things up because I have the power to do so. You are who you say you are. Personality is not static. You can control who you are. For example, hypothesis time here. Let's just say, for sake of argument, you move to a different, like you were just asking about different locales, right? Different locations. If you move to a small town where nobody knew who you were, and you said, yeah, I'm Dr. So-and-so, right? You have no doctorate, right? People have no other, they're going to call you doc. As long as you can like float the lie for as long, but they're still going to believe that that's what you're about. If you introduce yourself as Dr. Rollo Tomasi. If people are unfamiliar with who you are, whatever you say is authentic, whatever your authenticity really depends on you. Now, how does that apply to the people who already know you? There's a lot of guys that I used to know, like, would go off, they join the army or the Marines or something like that, and they go out, and maybe you've experienced this too, like they become somebody different when they come back. They go
Well, we definitely get brainwashed.
They go out for sure. But they you're in the Marines, right? You're Marine flight. Yeah. So they, like, guys go out, they join the Marines, they go on deployment, they come back a different person. When you have like live ammunition shot at you, you become a different person, yeah. Right? And your personality changes. And maybe it's your choice and maybe it's not your choice. But the fact of the matter is that your personality is malleable. And people will notice that, especially like people, like guys coming back from Vietnam, they got PTSD. You're damn right their personality has changed, because they have a real problem adjusting back to a domestic lifestyle when they were fighting for their, these guys sleeping under the bed because they don't want the VC to come and get. I've been watching this Vietnam thing. Sorry, it's on Apple TV, and I'm like,
we're talking more Afghanistan, Iraq.
The last episode was how these guys who came back alive, seeing their buddies like shot to pieces, how they would come back from Vietnam and literally sleep under the bed, or they just could not get those memories and those experiences. Even they're old. They're in their 60s and 70s right now. Maybe some cases maybe even 80s, right? They're in a state of when they start talking about what their experiences were back in Vietnam, it brings it right back, and they start crying and they start shaking. They might have beat the PTSD until you say, what was it like in Vietnam, Grandpa? And then it's like, that suddenly it triggers something.
Or they're like, we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that for World War II. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, but you become somebody different. So the point I'm making is that people want to tell you are being somebody you're not. Yeah, you're not. Your authenticity depends on what your experiences are and what you decide you're going to be. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with your friends who are just chilling. You're not chilling. Obviously, you wouldn't be watching us right now if you didn't want to grow and become something more than you already are. In fact, I think it's interesting you would even use the word chilling, right? Because I don't want to chill. I want to fucking move. Like, I want to do stuff. And And to do so, you have to reclaim some of your own authority, saying like, okay, they're going to call me a selfish prick or I'm a jerk now all of a sudden because I think about me first. There's a difference between selfishness and being self-important. And that's what you are right now, my friend. You're self-important, and they're picking up on that, and they're conflating that with selfishness. So, well, I'll leave you with this. This is a Shakespeare quote from Henry V. It is, self-love is not so great a sin as self-neglect. There you go. See, I can quote Shakespeare.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then Brent is a bass player.
Nice. Move to Vegas, please. I need you now.
Let's go.
I lost Ricky. I need you now, man. Yeah. Yes, I do actually need a bass player, Brent. Are you in Vegas? Allow me to introduce myself. Well, that's great, but if you live in Minnesota, kind of fucked. Seriously, DM me if you're in Vegas. Chicago. I could see why you'd want to leave. Why don't you come here? Yeah, move here. I think the mortality rate is different in Vegas. Okay, last question. What else do we have here? Let's see.
It'd be the second part of Patrick's, which is I don't see any other questions. Just the second half of
Patrick's or Ali's?
Patrick.
Patrick, what did he say? How much is this it? How do you uncover beliefs you don't know you have?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Okay.
Yeah.
Again, it's that you go into the Amazon rainforest and you lick a poison frog. And you have this cosmic experience, and that's how you discover your belief. Now, how do you uncover your beliefs? Asking questions. Why do I do what I do? Why did I do that? A lot of guys get, it's funny is when I deal with guys who are like, say, 45 and they're coming out of a divorce or something, they get really introspective. What did I do wrong? How did I fuck this up, Rolo? My wife said this, and then I said that, and then she said this again, and really what happens is they end up, because what's done is done. They're already divorced, right? But they're still kind of like trying to parse out what happened, and really what it comes down to is this sort of clash of beliefs. And so like they're really what happens is after the crisis is over, after the trauma is over, when you're asking those questions, you become a lot more introspective about things. So really what you have to do is you just have to ask, why do I believe what I believe? I'm a Christian. Why am I a Christian? Because my mom was a Christian. My father was an atheist. My mom died a confirmed Catholic, which was kind of weird because she was only Catholic for a while. But why do I believe what I believe? Where did I pick it up? Here's a great example. Whenever I can remember this one time I was on Fresh and Fit and I was on the girls show, right? And I kept wondering, where are these girls getting this shit from? Like I would talk to like Jedediah Bila and I would say like, where do you think these girls are like getting these beliefs from? Like she's like Jedediah is like a shock jock. She wants to point out like body count. Why do these girls think that having a high body count is okay? That's nasty, right? Well, why? Why did they get to that point? That's because that's a mindset, right? Like it's okay to have a high body count. You shouldn't even be asking about it. Okay, well, you're doing that. You're actually doing them the favor of trying to figure out why they believe what they believe. So I'm on Fresh and Fit, and I've got this girl that's sitting next to me, and she's like 19 years old, and she's got a body count of like in the 20s at 19 years old, and I'm like, fucking A. And then because she was at the time she was as young as or as old as my niece. And I'm like, this could be my niece sitting right next to me, right? And but my niece believes something different than this girl does. And then I'll hear these girls that are on the show, on that same show, they'll start saying, women need to fight for reproductive rights. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Like that's Gloria Steinem. That's from like Our Bodies, Ourselves. That's from the 70s. It's 2022. Where did you learn? Where did you even pick up fish needs a bicycle? Blah blah blah. Where? Now I know where because it's Gloria Steinem or Betty Friedan or whatever it is, the militant feminists of the late 60s and early 70s. I know where it is. I want to know how that ended up in their head. I want to know, like you'll still hear, like mark my words. Go to watch. You don't have to watch the whole thing because it's like 10 hours. But if you want to watch whatever podcast, listen to some of the rhetoric that comes out of these girls. If it's not verbatim, it's paraphrasing something that you'll find in the literature of feminists, militant feminists of the 1968 to 1973. You will find that those memes have somehow endured and been passed on to Generation Z. And we're talking about the boomers, Gen X, millennials, and now the Zoomers, right? How did we go from boomer feminism to Zoomers regurgitating the same rhetoric? How did that happen? And that's kind of like the approach that you need to have when you're trying to figure out what your own beliefs are, right? Is there some common thing you think of? Like happy wife, happy life, right? How do you come to that? Why do you not question that? And that's what gets me is I think one of the things that I've been told over the years is that when they read my book, they say, Rollo, you put into words what I couldn't articulate. I articulate what they already are thinking, but they couldn't put it into words, right? And really, it's a process, for me anyways, it's a process of asking questions that might seem like dumb questions. Why do men have to pedestalize women? Why are they doing that? Because clearly we got to say, well, you should put a woman on a pedestal, right? Knock her off the pedestal, man. Yes. But how does she get on the pedestal in the first place? You know, why do you think, why do guys think why do we idealize women? And so maybe that's a belief that it's going to depend on what belief you're actually referring to. But you have to question what's called the epistemology of it, which is the process of coming to that belief. What events led up to you having that mindset? What events, who taught you this? Did you pick it up in school? Did you pick it up in church? Did you pick it up from your mom or your dad? Maybe your sister, maybe pop culture, maybe a song, whatever it is. Like, yeah, I can get behind that. Like what I always, like Kyle knows, like when you become red pill, you can no longer listen to 80s power ballads. You used to think, I'm gonna keep on loving you. Like, no, you're not. And it's catchy. It's great. Steve Perry, Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon, man. I keep on loving you. Like that. That's still the night. I mean, you can't, but if you put the red pill lens on, you can no longer, be ignorant of what the message, the underlying message is behind that. And it's catchy, man. I love singing Don't Stop Believing. But then you realize what the lyrics are. Or I remember this, like if you go and you watch, if I can't watch Friends anymore. I can't watch Friends because I look at Joey, Chandler, and Ross as male archetypes. Joey's the alpha, the dumb alpha, like stereotypical dumb alpha. Then you got Ross. Ross is the doormat beta male dude who like miraculously gets the hottest chick, like Jennifer Aniston, right? Yeah, that'll happen. And then you got Chandler, who's kind of like, he's Mike the gamma male. He's kind of trying to figure out what is all this about? Like, how did this happen? Like, of all those characters, I can probably relate to Chandler the most. But it's the jokes, it's the interactions between the men and the women on the show. And when you look at it with the red pill lens, like you can't unsee it now. You can't watch Frasier anymore. Frasier is a horror movie, right? Mrs. Doubtfire wasn't a comedy. It's a horror movie. And I will tell you this right now, it's even more poignant when you think that it's Robin Williams who was the lead role in that. So, but anyways, getting back to the point is the belief set that you have right now, how did you come to that? Because I can tell you right now, if I go back and I watch those movies, I can tell you why I'm kind of like, this is cringe. I can tell you why, because I can follow this path of what my mindset is right now. But it wasn't the same when I was going through the 90s and I was watching those shows when they first came out. I was laughing along with it. I was laughing along with the laugh track because my mentality and my belief set was fundamentally different back then than it is right now. And you could say, well, you're cynical. Okay, but I'm realistic. Maybe you're right, but I'm still being realistic about things because my mindset changed as I got older with
We
experience.
got one more question.
Okay.
That I didn't.
That's fine.
Didn't see.
I can do it.
Here it is.
What did you say?
I somehow cannot identify with either alpha or beta.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to beat, dominate, and control others. I want to support others. However, I also can't stand people behaving in a condescending way to me, which many of my former colleagues were okay with. Don't know where to place this.
Okay. Um, so there's two ways to look at this. There's the Rollo Tomasi way, and then there's the Vox Day way. So I mentioned earlier I was going to talk about sociosexual hierarchies, and I should really just refer you to the Substack article that I wrote about this. I've done multiple videos on sociosexual hierarchies. What are sociosexual hierarchies? This is the Vox Day way of sort of categorizing guys. I'm not big on categorizing guys, but I think the sociosexual hierarchies that he came up with are pretty useful. So the first thing isn't the alpha. The alpha is like Maverick in Top Gun. Okay, that's Tom Cruise's character in Top Gun. Like he's got responsibilities, but he's at the top. He's the top dog. He's the guy who is the best of the best. He's the guy that other men want to be and other women want to fuck. The beta male, or sometimes you could call him Bravo male, but the beta male is not necessarily the beta. He's like the sidekick. He's like, was it Goose?
Goose.
He's like Goose. Okay. So Goose is happy go lucky. He still gets laid. He gets the leftovers of the alpha sometimes, but he's still like women still like him, but he's there. This is where I think you're at. He's the guy that's sort of the support, right? He's there to help out. And the problem is and here's where things sort of break down is if the alpha leaves or the alpha dies, that beta then tries to fulfill the role of the alpha and it never really works for him because he doesn't feel comfortable in that authority, right? You put a beta male with his sort of his alpha male and you got a perfect team, right? You got somebody who's got your back. He's your wingman, right? That's what Goose was. He was wingman, right? Yeah.
It's backseater, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Who was the else? What were the other call signs?
Iceman. Yeah.
Iceman. He's like your
Slider.
Iceman. Yeah.
He had a slider in our.
So you have the alpha, and then you have your beta. Then you have this is the delta male. The delta male. We need the delta male more than we need alphas, betas, gammas, or anybody else. Delta males keep the lights on. Delta males work in sewage. Delta males are your plumbers. Delta males are the guys who go out, do an honest day's work, and get an honest day's pay. These guys are like people want to call them drones, whatever. They are the guys who just want to be left the fuck alone. They want to be able to do their jobs, whether that's construction, that's working in an office, whatever it is. These are the guys that we fundamentally need to keep society running. They are the delta males. These are the guys who've been sold on the idea that you go to college, you get a degree, you go get a job, you get a certain amount of money, you get a 401k or you get a pension, and then you get to be 65, and then you go live in the villages in Florida, you play golf until you get, you die from lung cancer or whatever it is. That's the plan. You go to church on Sundays, you pay your tithes, you pay your bills, you pay your taxes, you complain about immigration, all that stuff. These are the union workers, right? These are the guys who get shit done. They're the ones that pave the roads. Remember when we talk about, men built all of this? You know who built that? Delta male men. Those are the ones that built that. They might have been conceived by an alpha. It might have been helped out by the beta, but who does the real work is the delta male. And that's the midpoint in sociosexual hierarchies. Then there's the gamma male, which maybe you are, is the guy who's over analytical. He's the guy that makes Excel spreadsheets. He's the guy that, like, women will say this, they have an uncontrollable urge to punch the guy in the face because he asks the questions that they don't want to answer. And so everything has to sort of fit into this logical box, right? The gamma male thinks that he should be the alpha male because he has everything women need, right? He's like, okay, what do women want? I'm going to go make my Excel spreadsheet. Okay, I've got this. Okay, they want a guy who's funny. They want a guy who has money. They want a guy who's 6 feet tall. They want a guy who is I don't know 185 pounds. They want a guy who has blue eyes, finance, blue eyes, six pack. Well, that's what they want. Guess what? That's me. I transformed my body and I transformed my entire life so that I can meet the desires adequately of women. Come and get me, ladies. And they don't. They don't have anything to do with them because it's incongruent with what he's really about. And these are and we, by the way, we need gamma males too. They tend to be more analytical. They tend to be sort of like the nerds. They tend to be the computer programmers. They tend to be the guys who can code. They're much more mathematical. They are analytical, and that's the problem. The problem is that that analytical mindset is what throws them off when it comes to social engagement. So they're so focused on writing, the next code that they're working on, whatever the computer's thing is, that they don't have any time to really learn social skills. So they become very analytical. Like I said, these are the guys that keep spreadsheets as to why am I not getting laid? Da, 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 right? And so the gamma males tend to be pretty annoying. And when a gamma male is given a certain amount of authority or a certain amount of power, the first thing he wants to do is he wants to become the alpha male that he thinks he ought to be in the first place. But it never really works out for him because his personality is completely different from the alpha male. But he never really considers that. So those are the note takers. Now, the omega male is, what's the guy in the basement in the office space? What's his name? The big fat guy who nobody keeps informed. I can't remember the dude's name. Yeah. That's the omega. The omega is completely invisible. He goes along to get along. They tend to be really socially maladjusted. Milton, yes. That Milton is an omega male. If you've ever seen Office Space, that's a good character archetype. Now, where do I think you're at? I think you're probably somewhere between a beta and a gamma, and at least as far as characteristics are concerned. Now, I'm putting that into sociosexual hierarchy terms. My terms are I just use abstractions. I just use alpha and beta. And so it's a little bit more reductionist, I think, from my approach, because I'm not really you could be an alpha male and then sometimes you can be demoted to delta male, right? You can have a guy who was captain of the football team and then suddenly he's a plumber, right? So those aren't permanent positions for people. People can go up and down the sociosexual hierarchy depending on what their the circumstances and stuff are concerned. But it sounds to me because you don't, the first thing you said is, I don't know where I'm at. I'm not really the alpha. I'm not really beta. Well, I think it's probably because you're thinking of terms in, abstractions, but also in reductionist terms. So I really don't want to see people I want the little guy to win, right? Well, that's kind of like the gamma male side of things. Or it could be beta male, if we're talking from sociosexual hierarchies. But furthermore, when I'm talking about alpha, like I said, I just distill it down to those two things. Now, the last thing, and this is probably where you think you are, and a lot of people get this. I'm really sick of seeing these faceless YouTube channels called Sigma Mindset, Sigma this, Sigma that, right? You're not a Sigma. If you're calling yourself a Sigma, you are not a Sigma, because no Sigma would acknowledge that they are a Sigma, okay? Sigma is this idea that there are men who exist outside of the hierarchy. They're the guys who are they're really alphas, but they do things their own way and they march to the beat of their own drum, and they set they set fashion styles and everything else. And I'm like, no, really what you're talking about is a antisocial alpha. There's pro-social alphas and there's antisocial alphas. There's plenty of alphas in prison right now. They were the gang leaders, they were the drug dealers, they were the criminal mass, they were Paco Escobar, right? I mean, alpha male, most definitely. And they're criminals. They're alpha male criminals. So if you think that alpha only applies to guys who are like the upstanding leaders of society, and they go to church on Sunday, and they, you know, they only fuck their wives, and they have 2.4 children and a golden retriever in the front yard. Like, no, that's not it. You can be an antisocial alpha. So the way I put it is this: you can look at alpha as Superman and Batman, or Captain America and Iron Man, like Tony Stark, right? You've got Captain America, who is about the American way and justice and law and order and everything else. And he's definitely alpha, and women definitely want to get with him, but he has this sort of like good guy security vibe that goes with him. Then you got Tony Stark, you got Iron Man, who is sort of this maverick. He's like Batman, right? Batman is the Dark Knight. He's the vigilante. He's the guy who's still alpha, very much alpha, but he gets things done based on his own like sense of justice, right? Sometimes that coincides with society's sense of justice, and sometimes it doesn't. Same thing with Tony Stark. Tony Stark is he's a philanderer. He fucks all until he meets what Pepper Potts, right? Then things change, right? But before that, he's banging girls all the time, and he's just this playboy lifestyle because he's this. You'll notice this: Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne are both like they're regular guys, but they have money, and the money is what sets them apart, because that's why he can invent a super suit, and Batman got the Batarang, and he could do whatever. He got the Batcave and the Batmobile and everything else because he's got the money they're just regular dudes. They don't really have superpowers, but long story short, those guys are Batman and Iron Man are examples of antisocial alphas, whereas Superman, truth, justice, and the American way, and Captain America are most definitely pro-social alphas. So that's why I disagree with this whole Sigma thing, because it's really this attempt for guys to say, well, I'm outside of this. I'm above all this. No, you're not. Anyways, that's good.
Roger that.
Are we good? Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody.
Yeah, we went over a little bit. That's fine.
Yeah. We'll be doing another one of these.
Where can they?
Well, hopefully this one actually records this time, and we'll put it up on a link to it on Reignite Alpha on Instagram.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where it'll be.
And then watch for these. And we're doing this monthly now.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we do this once a month. It's 2 hours. It's free. We want to tell you all about Reignite. We want to tell you what we're getting into. And so, like the topics that I got into today, which was I didn't get to confidence. I should have got to confidence. But we got to alpha mindset. We got to sociosexual hierarchies. I'm glad we did that. I love explaining that because people just are clueless. And then of course we got to mindset. And we got to alpha mindset too. So I'm glad we got to those topics today. But we tend to cover, well, I do anyways, tend to cover what's in my upcoming book. Also, you'll find these topics not only covered on my Substack, but also we've got modules and video. If you join Reignite, you have access to all the video modules that cover all of these topics as well. Then I go into a lot more depth. In those, I mean, some of those are like 45-minute diatribes. So.
And then I help guys out with just getting with their emotions so that they don't take over with them.
He's the emotional guy.
And then just being more social. You know, go out and date. So like we have a group call where the guys come in and talk about their dating experiences, and we break it all down. Yeah,
and we help you out with your Instagram. We help you reassess yourself. Like when we're talking about like, we got that one question about like, how do I figure out what what my belief sets are? It's like, well, that's one of the things we get into. That's one of the things we help you with. Help you with style. We'll help you with physique. Help you, if I can, help you entrepreneurially too. Right? We have a very good network of guys that help out, and the guys that are part. I want to say this. I have been wanting to say this because the guys that are part of Reignite right now, they're tight. Like you've probably seen some of the pictures off of the Instagram for Reignite, but the guys that are part of the group are just they help each other out. Like what was it? We had this guy Wes who was on the boat, who was on the fishing charter with us.
Yeah, he and Albert, right?
And he and Albert were talking about like buying land after that, and like how can they become like land barons or something like that. Yeah, and as far as I know, they're working together. So like there's that opportunity as well. That's why this is an all around great group. We're not here to sit in a drum circle. We're not going to go bare chested in like, cold plunges in the lake or some shit like that. We actually go out and do stuff like deep sea fishing. What are we going to do in August?
I'm setting up a shoot with Ty.
A shoot. And by shoot, it's not photo shoot.
Not a photo shoot. It's a weapon shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing a mastermind August. So if we do the shoot, it'll be August 12th. And that's kind of separate from the mastermind. And the mastermind will start August 13th through the 15th.
And what's on August 14th?
What is on August
My
14th?
favorite day of the year.
It's a Babes in Toyland party that we go to as kind of like the culmination.
Vegas.
Yes, in Las Vegas.
Because it's swim week that week too. So
Nice.
That's awesome. So yeah, we have a lot of fun. That's actually the big event in Vegas for Babes in Toyland. We just got back from the one in Miami, the white party in Miami. But yeah, if you guys want to be part of that, we'll probably have
it's in the Reignite Alpha.
Okay,
There's a
so
link
you can
for that.
register for it now.
Yes.
Cool. And then, you also have, like right now we have the free group for school, and then we have the paid group, right? The membership group.
Right.
Okay. So if you're still curious, you can always join the school group too.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next month. And until then, peace. Bye, guys.